Hey y'all, it's your girl, the real deal, Anita Gibb. Like, share, and subscribe. I want to come in here with another reaction. Real deal. I appreciate y'all vibe. I appreciate everything that y'all doing over here on your channel. Okay, I was trying to get the comments to work, y'all. I don't understand, so we're gonna leave it like that until I find out what's really going on when I record. All right, y'all, smash that like button. Let's get these views up because I'm working hard. I'm doing my part. Y'all need to do y'all part and thumb me up. Yeah. But y'all, I want to get into Doomsday Mom. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Lori Vallow trial. Yes. Guess who about to take the stand? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Melanie, her ex-best friend. Let's see what Melody got to say, okay? I will not talk during the trial. I can't talk through the trial, but I will be doing the reaction tomorrow sometimes. Oh, hold up for a minute. Let me put this up here. Hold on, y'all. I apologize. I had to find out what I need to do. I'll do that later. Okay, got everything in place. All right, y'all. Let's do it. Let's get it, and let's what? Let's go.
Approximately when you would have met Mr. Daybell?
I think I met him maybe a year or two before I met Lori.
When you first met Mr. Daybell, did the two of you strike up a friendship at that time?
Just a casual introduction to each other.
After your first meeting with Mr. Daybell, did the two of you stay in contact?
Whenever we would see, it was very periodically. It was not like we communicated, as friends or anything. If we engaged, seeing each other, we might say a few words to each other, but not a whole lot of contact.
And after you first met Lori, did the two of you continue communicating from that first meeting?
Yes.
Did you stay in constant contact or consistent contact?
Yes.
If you're a subject matter expert and you've got a message on your heart that could...
Okay, let's skip that commercial. I'm about to get into this content.
Or did you ever meet an individual named Tylee Ryan?
Yes.
And where did you meet her?
I met her at Lori's house.
Do you recall approximately when that would have been?
I would say within a week or two after I met Lori.
Did you ever observe Lori and Tylee together?
Yes.
What were you able to observe about their interactions?
She seemed upset and frustrated with Lori pretty much most of the time.
So, and when you say she, you're referring to Tylee?
Tylee, correct.
Did there appear to be some tension in that relationship?
Yes.
Did you ever meet an individual named JJ Vallow?
I did.
Yes. And where would you have met him, if you recall?
Same place, Lori's house.
Do you recall approximately when you would have met him?
Within a week or two after meeting her.
Did you have occasion to observe Lori and JJ's interactions with each other?
I did.
And what observations were you able to make of those interactions?
So sometimes I would watch her with him, and she was very affectionate and loving to him. I watched her sing a song to him as she was going to put him to bed. She seemed to care a lot about him. And other times, as I got to know her as time went on, he seemed to, frustrated, and so the connection, maybe wasn't as I didn't see them interacting as much the same way. She was distracted a lot, so I don't know how to explain it very well, but it was, she was just trying to help him, trying to settle down or whatever, but
So, from your observations, JJ and Lori appeared to interact more when you had first met JJ.
Correct.
And it seems like those interactions declined over time.
I would say a little bit. But
And I think you indicated from
yeah.
your observations, Lori was busy with some other things or
yeah, she's distracted a lot.
distracted. After first meeting Lori, we've talked about that you stayed in contact with her. How often would the two of you see each other?
Sometimes it was daily or several times a week in the beginning, just in the very beginning. Yeah.
And when you say in the very beginning, do you recall approximately how long the two of you would interact that frequently?
I would say until January. And then when she started moving, then I didn't see her as much or talk to her as much.
And when you say January, do you recall what year that would have been?
2019.
Did you and Lori live fairly close to each other?
I would say within 25 minutes from each other.
And did the two of you talked about you'd get together. Did you also speak to her over the phone during those times?
Correct.
Did you also message with her, text message or otherwise?
Yes.
Ms. Gibb, I would instruct you again, if you could just wait until the question is completed before you answer. And I understand it can be nervous to be there. It's just easier for our court reporter if it's just a back and forth exchange. So thank you.
And you indicated, I think, that after she started moving, could you explain what was going on there?
So about January, she decided to leave, and I believe she first went to Alex's house, or maybe Hawaii. They kind of were near the same timing, so she decided to leave and stay with him, and then she went to Hawaii, and then eventually she went to Texas. So she went to three different places, and then she finally went back to Arizona at the very end as her stay that I knew her in Arizona.
Do you know, you indicated she'd traveled around starting in January. Do you recall when you say at the end, approximately when the end was that she ended up, what time period she was moving around?
So January, February, March, April, May, and then July. I know she was back when Charles was killed in July, so I know she was back in Arizona by July. So all the way from January to July, she moved around several times.
And while she was moving around, did you stay in contact with her?
Yes.
Was that frequent contact? Do you recall approximately how often you'd speak with her or text with her?
It was inconsistent, but it was pretty frequent at the same time. So it wasn't like a consistent daily basis, but it was often.
And after meeting Lori, you indicated you met her in October of 2018. Did the two of you end up taking a trip to Utah?
This ain't competition, this is standoff. This is for them boss women to be the stand for.
There were, I don't know, about 5 or 6 ladies. I can't recall their names right now.
And that's just
Yeah.
fine, just what you can
Yeah,
recall.
I can't recall their names.
So there were 5 or 6 ladies that went to Utah together.
Yes.
Where did you go in Utah?
We went to St. George, Utah.
And what were you headed there for? Was there a reason?
There was a conference there.
And do you recall if Chad Daybell was also at that conference?
He was.
Did you observe a meeting between Chad and Lori?
Yes.
Do you know, had they ever met before?
No.
Were you there when they first met?
I believe so. I was there with her the whole time.
Did they, how long was the conference that you were at?
It was the weekend, so it was like a Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday most people went home. So it was that weekend.
And do you recall if Chad Daybell was there for the entirety of the conference?
He was there Friday and Saturday.
Were you and Lori there Friday and Saturday as well?
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I mean, we were in the area till Sunday. We stayed at somebody's home, but the conference was Friday and Saturday. And it could have been a Sunday evening, but I can't recall that right now. But he was gone by, if I remember, he was gone by Sunday morning or Saturday night, something like that.
Were you able to observe Lori and Chad together throughout the time that they were both there?
Yes.
And what, if any, observations did you make of their interactions?
They were very friendly to each other, very interactive, talking a lot about some of their ideas and beliefs that they had at that time. And so they were, there was definitely attraction in the beginning, right from the beginning. So.
And did you specifically observe any of Lori's actions towards Chad or how her demeanor appeared?
She seemed very interested in him, like someone that would meet somebody they're attracted to. She seemed flattered by him and very enticed by the conversation and, flirty-like. I would say a little flirty-like as well.
And do you know what Chad Daybell did for a living?
He was an author and a publisher and also a sexton.
And had you ever read any of his books?
I have.
Do you know if Miss Vallow Daybell had read any of his books?
She had.
And do you know if she'd read those books prior to meeting him?
She only read, I think, just a few, but she hadn't read all of his books. And I don't know if she made the connections yet of who he was with the books. I'm not sure about that.
And you indicated that you saw them speaking and they appeared to have some shared interests.
Correct.
And specifically with some religion, some religious talk.
Correct.
Do you recall if they told you anything regarding the two of them?
Yes.
And what was that?
He expressed to her that he believed that they had been married in multiple probations on this
I'm going to
planet.
object as to hearsay, Judge. What's the response from the state?
Your Honor, it's a statement of a party opponent.
Not this opponent.
It's a statement of a co-conspirator.
I'm going to overrule the objection under Rule 801D2E that does allow statements of co-conspirators in furtherance of evidence of a conspiracy. That's how that's allowed, Ms. Blake. I would indicate, though, that I think there may be some additional foundation before getting further into this issue as to whether those statements are allowed. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Gibb, did you have conversations about their first meeting with Chad Daybell?
Have conversations with him? I'm sorry, I'm not
Yes.
understanding.
Did you ever speak to Chad about the first time he met Lori?
Most likely, I just don't remember that exact moment.
So after the first meeting, did you speak to Lori about her meeting Chad?
Correct. Yes.
And when you were speaking with Lori, what, if anything, did she indicate to you that she and Chad had talked about with regard to the two of them?
She shared with me that he told her that they had been married in another time period.
And did she tell you what she believed with regard to that?
She did believe that. She had already had the belief system that this multiple lives, as they would call it, she'd already believed that before she physically met him.
Hold up. What I do? Sorry about that, y'all. Sorry about that. Oh, Lord. Oh, God. Okay, hold on, yeah. Okay. Hold up, people. Got to delete one of these. Oh, man. Oh, Lord, I got to delete one. Delete this one. Okay. About to reconnect, y'all. I'm sorry, my fault. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go, y'all. Here we go.
And backing up a little bit to that, how had Miss Vallow Daybell ever told you anything regarding her beliefs about prior probation or multiple creations?
She wasn't quite clear in her understanding at that point. She felt, and she shared with me, that she had been married to a prophet from the Book of Mormon named Moroni.
And did she share this information with you before she ever met Chad Daybell?
Yes.
After that conference, did you end up staying in contact with Chad Daybell?
Yes, I talked to him, communicate somehow, very periodically, not very often.
And I think you already indicated you and Lori would communicate quite frequently after that.
Correct.
Do you know if Lori and Chad stayed in touch after that conference?
Yes, they did.
And how do you know that?
She would tell me that they talked and how often they talked. And she, I often saw her on the phone talking to him. Occasionally I could hear his voice, but she'd always indicate to me she was speaking to him.
When they first met, do you know if Lori was married?
Yes.
And who was she married to?
Charles Vallow.
Do you know if Chad was married?
Yes.
And who was he married to?
Tammy Daybell.
Do you know if their spouses were still alive?
They were.
And we touched a little bit on the idea of multiple probations.
Correct.
When did you first learn of that term?
Probably when I started interacting with Lori is when it really began to be introduced to me.
And who started to introduce that to you?
Lori and then Chad, but mostly through Lori, through Chad. He would explain it a lot more than she knew of it.
So would Lori tell you that she and Chad talked about the multiple probations?
Yes.
And what was your understanding of what Lori and Chad believed regarding multiple probations?
Their definitions changed the longer they knew each other, but in the beginning it was believed that in this earth you could come back multiple times. So you may live in, certain earlier time in the world and then several times depending on you as a person. It would be different for everybody.
After Chad and Lori met in October of 2018, do you know the next time they saw each other in person?
I believe it was 2 weekends later. He came to town for another event that was in Arizona.
Did you attend that event?
I did.
Were both Lori and Chad present?
They were.
Do you recall if there was another get-together held separate from the event?
Yes. At Lori's house, there was like a little meeting right before the conference.
And do you recall where that meeting took place?
At Lori's house.
Did you observe Lori and Chad together during that meeting?
I don't think he was there. I'm not remembering that. He could have been, but I don't remember.
Did you observe Lori and Chad together during that weekend?
Yes.
And do you recall the context of where you observed them together?
So they were at the conference, and I saw them interacting. And then whatever time he arrived at her house, and he ended up staying at her house.
So your understanding was Chad stayed at Lori's house in Arizona?
That's right.
Do you know if Charles was present during that?
Hey, how's it going? Sean Cannell here from Think Media.
Oh Lord, why is my instructor on my channel? Get out of here, Sean. What did I do now? Okay.
Do you know if Charles and Lori were still married at that point?
They were.
Do you know if Chad was still married at that point?
Yes, he was.
Do you recall Lori telling you anything in November regarding she and Chad's relationship?
Yes.
And what did she tell you?
She told me that they had been married, I believe, 4 or 5 times. And she would go into different details with me about who she was, what character she was, and what character he was.
Do you recall if she said anything to you about going to the temple?
Yes.
And what did she tell you regarding going to the temple?
She would tell me that, yes, that weekend that he came to Arizona, that they met in the temple together, and they were somewhere in there, like in just like maybe a waiting area room, that they were sealed together by, I believe Moroni was there, and possibly, I believe she said Jesus Christ, and that relationship they had multiple lives, it was kind of like a reunited again. They got to be sealed there. It wasn't in a sealing room officially done by the church or anything like that.
And can you explain a little bit about the relevance of being sealed?
The teachings of our church talk about when you're sealed to a companion on this earth, that you are sealed for time and all eternity.
And when you say the teachings of our church, are you comfortable sharing what church you're a member of?
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Did Lori share with you how she felt towards Chad at that point?
Yes.
And what did she tell you?
She told me, they very much loved each other. They loved each other, in previous mortal probations. There was a lot of affectionate feeling she had for him.
Did she indicate to you anything about whether or not they were going to be open about their feelings for each other?
Are you like me? You trying to start your skincare?
Yeah, excuse the commercial, honey.
how they felt with me. She was open with it with me.
Do you know if they were sharing this information with other people?
Just probably people in their small group of circle. I wouldn't think anybody else.
Outside of multiple probations, did Chad well, let me back up. Did Lori ever indicate anything about having a special mission here on Earth?
Yes.
And what did she tell you about that?
She felt that she was part of the 144,000. And then as she developed her relationship with Chad, she felt like they were the head leaders of it.
And when you talk about the 144,000, can you explain a little bit about what that would mean?
It's reference from Scripture and Bible and in the Doctrine and Covenants about a group of 144,000 that would be here during the return of our Savior, and they would help do a great missionary work throughout the world. They would have, a lot of a spiritual endowment from on high.
So if someone were to be the head of that 144,000, would that be a pretty high calling?
Absolutely.
Would that be a position of pretty significant power?
Yes.
And when you talk about they may have shared this with their inner circle or their close friends, do you know who that would have included for them?
Yes. It would have included Sulema Pastenis, Serena Sharp, Christina Atwood, Nicole, forgot her last name, Melanie, Pulowski, and I believe she told her sister later on, and I don't know how much she shared with her family. I believe that's, and Alex, I don't believe, well, let's see. Those are the main people.
And when you say Alex, Alex who?
Alex Cox, her brother, Lori's brother.
Do you recall approximately when Lori started talking about being part of the 144,000 or the head of the 144,000?
Right when I met her.
And then I think so. And I guess I should break this down. I kind of asked a compound question there. So she first starts talking about being part of the 144,000 when you first meet her. Would that be correct?
Correct.
And then I think you'd already indicated after she met Chad, she indicated that she and Chad were the heads of the 144,000 or the leaders.
Correct.
Do you recall approximately how long after meeting Chad she started telling you that?
Within weeks, probably.
Do you recall Lori ever telling you about a light and dark scale?
Yes.
Did she ever explain to you what the light and dark scale was?
She did.
And what did she tell you regarding that?
She told me that people that were light were people that before they came to this planet, when we lived in a pre-mortal realm, basically our spirits lived there before we physically came here, that those that signed contracts and made agreements with the Savior were light, and those that were dark were those that signed contracts with Satan.
Do you recall when she first started telling you about light and dark, the light and dark scale?
It was sometime after she met Chad, that few weeks when she met him. I would say probably pretty immediate. It feels like it was like it could have been possibly that weekend or just days after that, after she met him.
And when she would tell you these things, would she also essentially be teaching you about this?
Correct.
Did you observe her teaching any other people these things?
Yes.
And do you recall who else you observed her teach these things to?
I saw her teach them to the girls that I mentioned earlier, her brother, and just a few other friends that I did podcast with.
Did the teachings about light and dark evolve over time?
They did.
What else did Lori end up telling you regarding someone that was dark?
The big money movement is
What else did Lori tell you regarding someone that was dark?
At first it was, they were working under the contract of Satan, and so they were more on that dark side, and then it would change, often more and more, but
could someone switch from being light to dark or dark to light?
I believe so. I believe that's my memory, yes.
And when, just backing up a little bit, when we talk about that inner circle, do you recall if Brandon Boudreaux was part of that circle?
Do you mean like sharing the beliefs with?
Yes.
Or no, we didn't share. She didn't share, or Chad didn't share with him, any of that information that I know of.
God, why?
I mean, she could have, but I don't remember it.
Do you recall Brandon ever
Why
being
is
at
my
any
lights? I can't answer the same question. Y'all not
meetings
moving my
or
lights.
gatherings where you were
Y'all
there?
not moving my follows.
I don't recall that.
Did you ever talk to Brandon about anything Lori was telling you?
No, not during my friendship with Lori. No.
What about Charles Vallow? Was he present for any of the teachings or the gatherings or the meetings?
No.
Do you believe that Lori would have considered him part of an inner circle?
No.
Did Lori ever tell you anything with regard to an individual being possessed?
Yes.
And what did she tell you regarding that?
So my first experience with her sharing that with me was, she was in, I believe it was the second house that I met her in. So it was probably, that January time of 2019. And she first started telling me she was in the backyard of her house. She came in and she started sharing all the information she just heard from Chad. Chad let her know that Charles Vallow was taken over by an evil spirit. And that was the first time she had heard of it. And then, that made him dark, according to them.
And that was in January of 2019?
I believe that is correct.
Did Lori talk to you about a dream she had had?
Yes.
And what did she tell you regarding a dream she had around that time?
So she shared with me that Charles was getting ready to go to Texas, and I don't know if he was there already, but that she had saw him in a car accident. I believe JJ might have been with him in the car accident, but that he died in it. And so he would not be coming back home by January 1st.
And do you know if JJ was with Charles during that time?
He was.
And do you know if JJ would have been traveling back with Charles?
Yes, he was.
Do you know if Charles was in an accident at that time?
He was not.
Did you ever talk to Lori about the fact Charles was not in an accident?
Yes, I did.
What did she tell you regarding that?
I asked her what happened. You shared that you thought he was going to pass away. And she said he didn't because Satan interfered with the plan.
And when she talked about the plan, did she tell you whose plan it was?
She would talk about just from her own experiences, often she would either have what she would call revelation about different experiences with Charles, or maybe she would also talk about her experiences with Chad and how they envisioned getting together, that their spouses would pass away. So that was the plan that was revealed to them. They believed that their spouses would pass away.
With the idea being that once their spouses passed away, they could be together.
Correct.
Based on what Lori was telling you, was it your understanding as well, because Charles was dark, he would need to pass away?
Correct.
Do you recall Lori ever talking to you about castings?
Yes.
What did she tell you regarding castings?
So she would say that she was trying to understand how to get these evil spirits out. And so her attempt to do that was to have like a prayer where she would, like you maybe would read from the scriptures, where you would try to encourage the spirit to come out by the power of God.
Did you ever participate in any castings or observe them?
Yes.
Do you recall when that would have been? Approximate, if you can remember.
Probably January, February 2019 is after, she learned that Charles was dark. So sometime after that.
And I apologize because you may have already said this, but was Charles the first individual that you ever heard Lori call dark?
Yes.
Zapier just
I'm gonna skip it a little bit, y'all.
The first time I recall was
Later that day?
no.
No? The next day?
No.
No. Okay. Had you ever gone with Lori to take JJ to school?
It's possible. I don't recall, but it feels like I have been. Feels like it.
Okay. Do you know that JJ had a routine that he would get in the car, go get some French fries or chicken fries at Burger King before he went to school every day?
I don't recall that.
You don't recall that? Okay. You indicated on direct examination that Lori had said something about a belief in multiple lives or multiple probations. Is that right?
That's right.
Isn't it true that you said something to Lori about you felt like you had been on this earth 4 or 5 times?
No.
You've never said that?
No, she thought that. That was her belief, not mine.
She thought that you had been on
Correct.
the earth 4 or 5 times.
Correct.
And during the course of the year that you guys were close, you never bought into that?
At times.
At times you did buy into that you had multiple lives, or you were...
I wasn't sure, but she was very convincing and tried to encourage me to believe it.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Lori meeting Chad for the first time. I think you indicated that was, let me see, a couple weeks after the October 2018 visit. Is that right? When you met with Lori?
It could have been that weekend. I don't remember exactly the weekend. It was in October. I know that.
Okay. And then a couple of weeks later,
there was a meeting at Lori's house where Chad was there, right?
Correct.
And you indicated that Chad had spent the night there?
Correct.
Did you also spend the night there?
I did.
And weren't there also all the other speakers who were speaking at that conference? Didn't they all spend the night as well?
No, just some people did, but not everybody.
How many people do you think spent the night there?
Maybe 5 or maybe 6. About 6 people, I think.
Okay.
Sorry, we have another third time this morning cell phone interruption. And we've been doing so well up until now. So it's just been the morning for phones. Everybody, please make sure they're on silent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bailiff. Apologies to interrupt.
That's okay, Judge. Do you want to take a minute and let everybody turn their phones off, or just make sure they're off? Or are we good to just keep going?
Let's just keep going.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Certainly. So there were multiple people who spent the night at Lori's house. This wasn't some romantic encounter between Chad and Lori, correct?
I don't know what their desires for that connection at that time. I don't know what they were trying to, what their conversations about why he was staying there. But I know that there was some attraction. I'll just say that.
Okay, but this wasn't a hookup, right?
I can't agree with that.
You think that you and at least five other people who were at this conference and Chad were in the midst of Chad and Lori having a hookup that night?
They weren't acknowledging of it. I didn't say that. I'm talking about them. That was their own personal, whatever they had going up to get together. That was between them. But the other people, I don't think they were aware of what was going on.
Okay. All right. And I believe you indicated that Lori said that she had been through 4 or 5 different creations. Is that right?
Yes.
4 or 5 probations. I don't know.
I used to know. I'm remembering 5, but it seemed like it changed again. I don't remember the number right now.
Okay. And then you indicated that Lori had met with Chad in the temple with Moroni and Jesus Christ in the same room.
Correct.
Okay. And you had been to the temple with Lori on multiple occasions, right?
That's right.
And did this intrigue you at all?
Which part?
That Lori was married to Chad by Jesus Christ and Moroni.
I thought it was very unusual and different. I didn't really know what to think about it. I wondered, is that really true?
And what temple was this?
Like the Gilbert Temple.
And is that the temple that you normally went to?
Correct.
And had you been to the temple with Lori after this particular event?
Yes, we went often. So, yeah.
And you never asked her to show you the place that she got married?
No.
Okay. There was some testimony about Lori having a special mission on Earth, that being part of the gathering of 144,000 people.
Correct.
Yeah. And you indicate that was biblically referenced. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And then at some point, Lori believed that she was one of the heads of the gathering of the 144,000. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And were you ever involved in or brought in to that gathering of the 144,000?
Well, she would indicate that the girls that she knew were part of it. It wasn't given to us as knowledge on our own, just it's what she believed and Chad believed.
Okay. And did you believe that you were part of the 144,000?
I wasn't sure. I didn't feel like it, but they kept trying to convince me that I was, but I didn't feel that calling ever.
Okay. But you were involved in what they call what has been referred to as castings. Is that right?
Correct.
And when you say castings, it kind of has a witchcrafty type of a connotation to it. Do you think, or no, or is that not what you think of?
It didn't feel like that. So
Did it feel like biblically Jesus would cast out devils and cast out evil spirits, and that's what you guys were doing?
correct.
Okay, so it was more like, not like casting spells. It was more like
No,
casting out devils by using prayer,
correct.
right?
Correct.
And you were involved in some of these casting out of devils and evil spirits with Lori, right?
Correct.
Okay. And during the times that you were doing these castings or casting out of evil spirits, did you ever feel like this was the wrong thing to do?
It felt very unusual. It was very innocent to me.
Innocent in the fact that you were just in a prayer circle, right? That you and whoever else were just praying about somebody.
Correct.
Or you were praying for the leaders of the world, or the leaders of the church, or for hunger to dissipate, or something good to happen, right?
No,
No? You never prayed about that?
not that I have any memory of.
Okay. All right. So when you were doing these castings, was it for specific people only?
Yes.
Okay. Now, tell me a little bit about light and dark. I have some knowledge, and I think that this might be interesting to flesh out a little bit for the jurors. So tell me a little bit about light and dark. You indicated, I think, that someone can switch between being light and being dark.
They indicated that to me. Yes.
They indicated that to you.
Chad and Lori. Yes.
All right. And you never believed any of that?
At times I wondered if it was true. I wasn't 100% convinced.
Okay. But you were involved in casting out of dark spirits, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you believed it somewhat.
Like I said, somewhat, but not completely.
Okay.
I don't think they believed it at first too, because they didn't know what they were trying to accomplish.
Well, when they were asking, when the prosecutor, Ms. Lindsay Blake, was asking you about who you had told about light and dark, and then she specifically mentioned the absence of Brandon Bedreau, you had said, and I guess I can't quote you, but I think you said we, and then you corrected yourself, and then you said Chad and Lori were the ones who were doing that, right?
They were in charge of doing that.
Okay. But you had injected yourself, right?
It was just an accident word.
Freudian slip?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You talked a little bit about the first casting out of an evil spirit that you did. Involved Lori, Zulema, Christina, yourself, and somebody else. Is that right? I wasn't fast enough writing them down.
Those people, yes. I might have been one more person.
Who
Did you
was the
say?
other
Did you
person?
say Nicole?
I did not. So
Okay,
that must have been the other person, huh? Who's Nicole?
A friend of Christina's, which were both friends of Lori's.
And was Christina there as well?
Yes.
Yes, Christina. Okay. And what's Nicole's last name?
I'm not remembering. I didn't know her very well.
Okay. What's Christina's last name?
Atwood.
Atwood. And was this casting done in someone's home, or was it done in the temple, or where was it done?
It was done in homes. Yes, I don't think it was done in the temple.
Okay. And what would this look like? I mean, what would a casting look like?
Lori would, we all, most time. Maybe not the first time, but generally it was just people standing up, and I don't remember people held hands or not. I don't remember that. Just basically kind of stood in a circle together or lined up around, just being in the same room together.
Mm-hmm. And then what would happen?
And then she would try to express her castings out by her knowledge, that whatever she could think of, maybe terminology that she gained from either energy work or maybe scriptural, those kind of things. I don't recall the words. And I think her friends would try to come up with something that they thought was helpful, and it generally sounded like something you would say in energy work. How I can explain it.
Okay. And what's your familiarity with energy work?
So I had a little bit of energy work done to me through a person who, it's called a motion code, where they ask the body questions, and often they would talk about how you were, connected to your ancestors, or you had different emotions going on in your body, and they would try to release it through they call it muscle testing, things like that. But some of the practitioners would sometimes able to communicate with spirits on the other side of the veil, like deceased ancestors or people like that. And so they kind of had their own language. I was never an energy worker, so I don't, remember all those words, but I just remember that was my experience. So just to clarify, and I'm still a little bit confused about what went on in these castings. I think we established that it was a prayer. And each person would say a little part of that prayer. Is that how it would work? Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to see what he's trying to get to. I guess he trying to get with Melody. How did it come to a point the way she cast her spells? I don't want to hear all that. But let me skip it, y'all, a little bit to the detective and see what he's talking about. I don't want to play the whole thing because I'm getting tired.
It's a rental car. That phone was later returned by Lori to the Chandler Police Department.
Hold on, let me see what they say about that phone. See, JJ had a phone. Let me see what they said.
So I wasn't able to assist as much as possible. But shortly after, in January, I was able to obtain some records, their Apple or iCloud account records, and some cell phone records that I looked through and analyzed.
And going back to that July 11th date, when you were assisting with the scene, what does it generally include if you're the scene detective?
So as a scene detective, when we first get there, we have the assistance of a crime scene detective, or a crime scene technician, sorry. A crime scene technician is an evidence technician that will first take photographs of the overall scene. Once that is done, the crime scene detective itself will go through and determine items of evidentiary value that we need to collect, photograph, and then seize as evidence in this case.
As part of being the scene detective or assisting the scene detective, did you deal with the body?
I did. In this case, the body is as evidence as anything else in the scene. So I made a call to the Maricopa County Medical Examiner's office once our photographs were taken, and then a medical examiner investigator responded to assist us with the investigation and to take control of the body.
And I may have jumped ahead a little bit with this. Because you'd responded to the report of a shooting, when you got there, was it determined if there was a victim?
Yes, there was.
Was the victim alive?
The victim was not alive.
Did you learn the identity of the victim?
Yes, through our investigation and through the caller, the victim was identified as Charles Vallow.
And when you respond to the report of an unattended death, is it your common practice to investigate?
Yes, any unattended death that we investigate, we automatically investigate as a homicide until the evidence or witness statements proves otherwise.
And in this case, did you observe Charles Vallow's body?
I did.
What observations did you make?
So upon entering the residence, there is a large living room area. In this living room, it was a wood flooring, plank flooring. There was no furniture in this room. There were mirrors along the north side of the room, the west side of the room, and I believe the east side or south side of the room, which was odd. Charles was laying what we refer to as in the supine position or on his back on the west side of this particular living room. His head was to the north and his feet were to the south. When I had observed him first, his shirt had been cut away from his body to expose his chest. There was medical equipment on his chest that were used to confirm death. And his arms were to his side and his feet were stretched out to the, like I said, to the south.
Okay, y'all, we're gonna end the live right there because I gotta go to work in the morning. But that was the tactic, Chandler. Oh wow, I had to go back and change that word. Chandler detected talking at the end. But y'all, Melanie, we're gonna react on it tomorrow, okay? I'm not gonna mess it up. All right, y'all. Let me hold on for 1 second, y'all. Let me change something. I would like to see you all get a little bit, engage in the comment section for me a little more, because my the product that I'm using in class is really going to help me, and I need y'all participation in the chat. Just leave a comment or something. All right, y'all. I'll see y'all in the morning at 5. If you woke at 5:10, 8 o'clock, and 6:20 at about 6:30, something like that. All right, y'all. I'm trying to do better with be consistent with my time when I come on. I like, share, and subscribe. I hate I'm in this environment right here, but it's late and I don't got tired. But I love y'all. Okay, I'm out.